Hey, it is UFC Strickland versus Abus Magomedov review time, aka UFC Vegas 76. I don't know where we are on the ESPN numerical scale here. Let me just pull that up real quickly because the Tapology card usually doesn't actually make reference to what it is. 48. There you go. 48. A 6-fight main card and a 6-fight undercard. Some of the fights over-delivered. I will freely say, was not looking forward to this card. There were 3 interesting fights, I thought. And somewhat surprisingly, they kind of were the downside. Michael Morales versus Max Griffin was really, really good, but like Grant Dawson, Damir Ismagulov, and Ariane Lipsky, Melissa Gatto were kind of disappointing. Benoit Saint Denis had a big performance. Nursultan Ruzaboev had a pretty good performance. Renat Fakhretdinov had a good performance. A surprisingly good fight was had between Elvis Brenner and Gurin Kutaladze. That was actually really good. Alexander Romanov got back on track. So, like, all things considered, this card over-delivered. That being said, it was still not good. Like, the main event, Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov, over-delivered in the sense that we got a Sean Strickland finish. But we also were just confirmed how much Abus Magomedov should not have been in a main event. He got stopped in the second round of the fight. He looked good in the first round. Was beating up Sean Strickland's legs with low kicks. Was hitting the teep kick to the body. Was generally outmaneuvering and preventing himself from getting caught in the cage. And then he did what Abus does, which, again, throughout the whole lead up of this Abus fight, it was painful for me because there were like people like, you know, Abus Magomedov's actually really, really good. He's gonna do things in the UFC's middleweight division. He's gonna be a big thing. He's gonna fight for a title. I had 3 people claim that. And it was just very, very clear that, like, the people who were excited for Abus watched him knock out Dustin Stolfus, admittedly in, like, an incredibly impressive amount of time, and built a character of his fighter around that performance that ignored everything that came before it. And this is what came before it. He's a guy who self-destructs, who isn't super durable, doesn't have a particularly deep gas tank, and outside of hitting pretty hard and having like some wrestling game, like I said in the preview, he's not like some amazingly bad fighter or non-UFC caliber fighter, but as a main eventer, this guy's a fraud. And he got fraud checked to crap here. By the way, I'm going to talk about fraud checking with a fight later on. Actually, 2 fights later on. So it probably behooves me to actually set up my, like, what is a fraud check? A fraud check to me is something that is, number 1, damning of the fighter that we're talking about. And number 2, deflates a mythos, an expectation around him that wasn't substantiated. So in Abus's case, the mythos, the myth of Abus was, this guy's going to be really, really good because he knocked out Dustin Stolfus really, really quickly. Ignoring the fact that Dustin Stolfus is just not good. And that he has significant flaws. And it'd be one thing if he was like some 24, 25-year-old kid coming to the UFC and you're like, all right, you are not a final product. You will mature as a fighter, as a person, as a technician, and you will become better. Like, the best is yet to come. This guy's older than Sean Strickland. He's 32 years old. It was the weird thing of, like, the great prospect, Abus Magomedov, going in there, going to make a name for himself. And it's like, this guy is older than the veteran he's fighting. So, is he? Like, is he a prospect? Is he going to go on to great things? And the answer is no. So that was a fraud check. There was the myth around it that was unsubstantiated by previous stuff, and he got not just finished. I want to be clear on this, because a lot of the fraud check stuff comes up when someone gets like knocked out. We're going to talk about that with Gurin Kutaladze later. This was the fact that not only did he get finished by Strickland, the finish is actually rather immaterial to the fraud check. It's the fact that everything that he has historically done poorly, backing up into the fence, gassing out, not being super durable, not holding up under pressure particularly well, all came to play in the second round. And Strickland's not some great finisher. And it wasn't sudden. I think that's the other thing, is that a lot of people go with like fraud check on something sudden. And we'll talk about that later. Something like, massive. It's like Matt Serra got knocked out by GSP. That was not a fraud check. That was something that happens in MMA. It's the same with like a Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo situation, where Aldo got knocked out really, really badly. And people still treat this as like a definitive result that like, oh no, Aldo was never as good as McGregor, man. That fight never, that fight never could be competitive. And it's like, no, we just got a really good knockout and like really quick. It was really, really cool. It was awesome, but it really didn't prove much. This proved a lot. This was kind of interesting. How long did this officially go? 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the second round. This was a 4-minute plus of absolute destruction and every limitation that Abus Magomedov has historically had, except for his bad like positional grappling, put on display writ large over ESPN. And I don't know. There are people that are dealing with a lot of cope right now, and I've never felt so good about a Sean Strickland win. Next up, Strickland I've got against the Costa Askarov. There's not much to do with him. Like, he called for a title shot, and people got mad about him calling for a title shot. You know what? On the list of people that Izzy hasn't beaten, he's pretty high up there. Like, people are like, oh, you get a title shot for beating an unranked guy. Nah, he's getting a title. If he gets a title shot, it has really nothing to do with Abus Magomedov. It has to do with just his body of work, his time being ranked in the top 6 or so of the division, and the fact that for whatever reason Izzy Adesanya didn't come across him on his way up. Like that would be the justification for the title shot. But if it's not a title shot, and I doubt it will be, because something I've kind of noticed here, like people think that like Sean Strickland is a draw because social media talks about him a lot. And I get that. Like that indicates there's an interest, there's a need to talk about him. But realistically, the fact that the UFC basically banishes him to Apex cards, not pay-per-view main cards, not bigger like ABC cards or anything like that, or out of the Apex, indicates to me that the guy probably doesn't actually draw like actual viewership. And I had this conversation with somebody about Colby Covington, because he was like, well, Colby Covington gets talked about way more on Twitter than Bilal Muhammad. He has to be a bigger draw. And I do, to a certain degree, believe that, like, if we're talking about Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, or Leon Edwards versus Bilal, there's going to be a slight bump in buy rate for the former. I've said this a couple of times, but I don't think it's going to be huge. Like, realistically speaking, Colby on a stacked card as the B-side to Usman did 700K. And then, like, his buy rate against Masvidal, where he was probably still the B-side, but, like, maybe was the A-side, did relatively poorly. It's not like, this guy probably has a buy rate, has a Q rating, has a draw rating of under 500K. Let's not act like, you know what, Colby Covington, Leon Edwards is going to do freaking million buys, man. That's how important, that's how cool Colby Covington is. And it's like Sean Strickland's the same thing. It's like, yeah, he gives us plenty to talk about being a stupid, stupid idiot. And appealing to, honestly, some of like the sludge of humanity. Vis-a-vis his views on women, his vis-a-vis views on everything. And people will say it's just a gimmick. It's just an act. I don't think it is. Like, he goes out there afterwards and he's like, and it was the weirdest thing of like his post-fight was when he went out there and he's just like, all right, guys, don't get like, I'm not direct quoting here. I didn't write it down word for word, but it's like, don't get bent out of shape. I just kind of I love the country. I would die for the country. I would kill for the country. I'm like, all right, so far, so, typical patriotic stuff. But don't get bent out of shape about it. I just want to change the fabric of our social and moral values. Okay. Wants to take us back to like the 1960s. And if that negatively impacts you, you shouldn't get bent out of shape about it. I don't understand this. I don't get it. Someone, I'm not even going to name him because honestly, I just think he's a gigantic troll, had like a point of like, does Sean Strickland have a point with like his views on women out of the workforce and everything? And it was a troll job, but like there were people like taking it seriously. I just jump in. I'm like, even ignoring the whole sexist sociological standpoint of Sean Strickland's worldview, like the American economy and like social structure isn't set up to do any of this. Like we have moved to the point where like it's not even about equality that has working moms. It's about just raw what you got to do to survive. Like that's what it's gotten to. And Sean Strickland's political stuff, it's a really uncomfortable thing because like there's a lot of people that probably take it as an act. If you're like, it's just a gimmick. Okay, it's just a gimmick to you. But like these are things that are being cited in like shooter manifestos, admittance of crime against women, admittance of crime against minorities and stuff. Like this messaging, maybe not Sean Strickland necessarily, because I don't have an example of Sean Strickland being quoted in any of this, but like, let's put it this way. Sacha Baron Cohen, a.k.a. Borat, a.k.a. A number of other parody characters, mockumentary-style characters, does a lot of these mockumentaries and stuff. And it's a joke. It's not serious. It's a mockumentary. It's for entertainment purposes. But if that ended up getting quoted for like mass shootings or crime of any kind, really, you would have a problem. And that's where we are with this, like, be it Andrew Tate, be it Sean Strickland, be it Colby Covington, quote unquote act is not everyone's in on the joke. And the people not in on the joke are some of the most dangerous, deranged people on the planet. That's a bit of a problem. Anyways, what's next for Abus Magomedov? I don't care. I penciled in Eric Anders. I don't think he's very good. I don't. Like he feels like a gatekeeper fighter. Like that like essentially should be like he's the guy you introduce like a Dana White Contender Series guy against. It's like, go, you there, who's used to like just destroying people and like overwhelming them with your raw physicality. Can you do that to Abus? Because if you can, it's a great sign. If you can't, it's the wake-up call to like improve yourself. Like that's the perfect role for him. But like he's also just been in a main event, so like you can't really send him to that role yet. So, I don't know. Give him Eric Anders. Anders will probably beat him. Damir Ismagulov, Grant Dawson. This was another bit of a fraud check. Although, I'm sorry. I've got the sniffles again. This was a fraud check with some caveats to it. What I mean by that is that, like, Damir Ismagulov, if you're not familiar with the story, was like, I've got medical issues. I'm retiring from fighting. Learned that the UFC would not release his rights, so probably maybe there's a kernel of truth to the health issues. Maybe he wants to retire a little bit, but I think more likely probably just wants to go back home, make some good money, not have to travel for the UFC schedule. And not that he's afraid of the competition, because I don't believe that's the case. He would never have signed if that was the case. But, he's realizing that the money is not so great on the UFC side. He can make similar amounts of money for fighting easier competition back home. And he wants to do that. Zhalga Zhumagulov was in the same boat. Or if not home, like Russia. And he goes out there and he looks honestly kind of flat. Like, I mean, this is a guy that resisted Arman Saryukin's takedowns a lot more than he fought against Grant Dawson's. So I don't know. Is this a fraud check, or is this just an unmotivated, flat performance by Ismagulov? I don't think it really matters because presumably he will leave. Presumably this was the last fight on his contract. I think I heard that. And he'll just leave the UFC. So it doesn't really matter. But like it's to a degree of fraud check that the last memory we'll have of his UFC run is getting taken down, getting his back taken, and having no answer for Grant Dawson's top game. Which does bode rather poorly for like an ACB run. Dawson did really, really well. I didn't think there was a 10-8 here. I know there was a 10-8 on one scorecard, and Twitter was debating if it was 10-8 or not. I don't think there was, not because I don't think that there should be. I've said this before. I am actually of the opinion that under a proper scoring criteria, we'd have a 10-8 like every fight, because a 10-8 would be just a really, really clear-cut round of dominance by one fighter. And then it's like we're going to talk about Gatto versus Lipski, for example. Gatto-Lipski would be littered with 10-9s. None of these rounds were the same as those rounds. So they shouldn't be 10-9s. But under the UFC's current idea, the emphasis of damage and whatever, there wasn't really enough actual damage being dealt out by Dawson because he wasn't super active from back control with ground and pound. He was like kind of looking for rear naked chokes, and they weren't really there because Damir Ismagulov's never been finished, and there's kind of a reason for that. Like, he's a sound defensive grappler. So the lack of damage to me kept these in 10-9s, even though they were absolutely dominant. Again, I would love it if these were like 10-8, 10-8, 10-8, and then like it was 10-9s through Lipski Gatto, or 10-10s. Bring in 10-10s. Either way, like however we want to do it, I think our construct of a 10-9 is wrong. It's too broad. But under the construct, I think these were all 10-9s. Anyways, Dawson dominated, shut out his camp really well there, and his wife after the fight, you know, seems like a really good dude. I like him. I do. He wants a name, or he wants a rank. He cited like Tony Ferguson. He cited Beneil Dariush. I'm going to suggest Matthias Gamrot. Two guys who kind of want to do the same thing. They're both pressure wrestlers who have good back take games and like good top grappling. Let that be a thing. And Damir, like I said, I've got retirement / going back home to make some blood money. I don't think we'll see him again. Max Griffin versus Michael Morales. All right, this was my main event because I think Michael Morales is quite good. I think Max Griffin is a very stiff test for him. And the first round was very close. Griffin had a little bit of an edge on landed shots. He was landing some good kicks. He was trying to absolutely no avail to get takedowns, and he ate like 2 groin shots on like jumping knees by Michael Morales. By the way, if I am going to critique one thing about this performance for Morales, less jumping knee strikes. You're not super good at them, and they need work because he dinged Morales in the nut, or Griffin in the nuts 3 times, and probably should have lost a point. But yeah, Griffin I think nominally won the first round, but it was a very positive round for Morales. And then in the second and the third round, he turned up. He turned up his own volume. He started throwing combinations. It wasn't just a jab. It was a jab with the jumping knee stuff and with some combinations and actually hurting Griffin and still shutting down his takedowns, being willing to take him down himself. Gave him a slam right at the end of the fight, which was really, really nice. Morales is a beast. Like, he really is a beast. And I think moving to Entrim Gym is a really, really good idea. I think this guy is actually legitimately what they were trying to make Abus Magomedov out to be. Like, this is a guy who is, I think, going to be like a long-term ranked fighter, title contender, maybe even champion in the future. Like, that's how good he is. This guy went out there at like 25 years old, jumped from Adam Fugit up to Max Griffin, and made the fights look kind of similar. That's kind of insane. There's work to be done. His defense is still a little bit lacking, but it was better than it had been in the past. And that's the thing, is like everything about Morales' game in this one looked better. There was more variety to his game. There was better defense, still bad, but better defense. There was a more fluid transition from striking to wrestling. And like, it just, everything looks so good. I'm gushing about this performance. And it's a decision win. And it's a 29-28 decision win because, again, I thought Griffin did win the first round. But, yeah. For Morales, I've got Daniel Rodriguez next. I don't want to really go to the next level, and Rodriguez is kind of on the same level of Max Griffin, but he's a little bit more comfortable making his game work without the wrestling being in play, which should be a little better. Should be a little bit of a stiffer test, a little bit of a different test. I like that fight. And for Griffin, I've got Mike Malott because Morales moved from Fugit to Griffin. Malott just beat Fugit. Bring him up to Griffin. I don't have the same kind of hopes from Malott just because I don't think he's the same level of athlete, and I don't think he's the same like age. He's I think in his 30s. So like he's more like he's more faux prospect. Like not faux prospect like Abus is, but like he's a little bit more faux prospect than Morales. But like still, he's a guy who is going places, has a little bit of time left. We got some years, probably going to get a ranking. Give him Max Griffin, see what he does. So that would be good. Ariane Lipski versus Melissa Gatto was not a good fight, and I don't really have much to say about it. Gatto had the volume edge. Lipski had the quality edge. Gatto could not get her wrestling going to the point where she got thrown on her own head like 3 times. Yeah, I was wrong. I did think the 30-27 Lipski card was a little bit much. I did think Gatto won the first round. Lipski didn't do much in the first round. Neither did Gatto, but Gatto did land more shots. And I hate to be the guy who's like, land more punches, win round. But like sometimes that's what it comes down to. But yeah, I'm not gonna get bent out of shape about it. Lipski, I've got against the Natalia Silva KGB loser, and I've got Gatto versus Montana De La Rosa. I don't know. Something has gone drastically wrong with Gatto's development. Benoit Saint-Denis, Ishmael Bonfim. This is pretty good. Bonfim got really cocky here. Like he was like asking for the body kicks, and they after the fight, he's like, those really did hurt. At the end of the day, eventually Benoit Saint-Denis gets him to the ground. He gets back control. He gets a neck crank. Not a choke. Wasn't under the neck. I think he was literally just on the chin. It was like a full-on pain crank. But he gets tap out. It was a good, fun fight. It's a solid performance by Benoit Saint-Denis, who I picked to lose. I picked fairly comfortably to lose. He showed more in the way of a body kick game. He showed more of a way of a range game. He's getting better. He's improving. And maybe there's a distinct problem with Bonfim, though, because I do think a part of this win by Benoit Saint-Denis was Bonfim just being stupid. Like the waving on to the body kicks and some of the ground decisions were not good. Not standard Bonfim. Like I just think he's better. Like it's one of those fights where like we got a definitive winner here. And I would pause on picking Bonfim in a rematch. But I probably would. I don't know. It felt weird. For next opponents, Saint-Denis called out Gamrot. I don't see what purpose that fight has. I've got him against someone more like Drakkar Klose and Bonfim against Alexander Hernandez. I think would be really fun. Nursultan Ruzaboev just destroyed Bruno Ferreira. he caught a kick, dumped him on his head, and beat that man to death. Jesus. That was painful. I don't find myself particularly thinking Ruzaboev is all that good still, though. He's freakishly tall. He's definitely strong. He's got all the physical tools to be a real problem. But like nothing about that made me think, you know what, this guy's game actually has more to it than I thought. It's just more Bruno Ferreira being 7 inches shorter than a guy. Went out there and was didn't really have answers. Didn't really have answers. He had to resort to just like throwing naked kicks, and it got caught, and he got put on his back, and he got finished. And I don't know. I think this fight more just like said more about like the Fahea probably needs to think about like welterweight as an option. For bookings, I've got Fahea versus Razak Al Hassan, which was supposed to be this fight originally, and that's a dope fight. Please make that happen. It's like all kinds of violence. I don't know what to do with Rizapoev. I've got like Armin Petrosyan circled in, penciled in, I should say. Like Petrosyan's more of a similar height and a guy who can compete with him probably at range, and we'll kind of see what happens. Kind of like a similar test for like the Christian Leroy Duncan that Petrosyan just gave. Like it's a litmus test to like, is he actually particularly good, or is this just really about Fahea being someone that can kind of be diffused with just, you know, insulation and a little bit of defense? Kevin Lee got wrecked by Renat Fakhretdinov, just got dropped, and Renat pounced on his neck, locked in a guillotine choke, choked him basically unconscious. Kevin Lee is before this fight, I wanted to say Kevin Lee was not done. He's not that old. He's got time. But I just think that there's nothing right going on in the development of Kevin Lee right now. There's just nothing. He's a broken fighter. He's a fighter that like fought for a title and was like, well, an interim title, but like was legitimately a very, very good fighter, a prospect that I had high hopes for, and he's broken. It don't work, and he also probably just needs to. I don't know. Can he get down to 155? If not, he's retirement. Retirement is the answer. I don't even have next opponent for him. He's just that broken. I don't want to take away from Fakhretdinov. Like, it was a cool finish after the fight. He was talking about how he took it personally that people were calling him boring. He's going to go back to being a finisher. He's going to do some things. He's going to be more aggressive. And you know what? Put him up against the winner of Jeremiah Wells and Carlson Harris. Probably going to be Jeremiah Wells. And see what happens. Because, you know, he's young enough and he's got a good enough base skill that, like, it's still interesting. I just also think that Kevin Lee is just cooked. Joynerson Brito versus Weston Wilson. Outside of going for a knee bar, Wilson just got his face smashed in. And it was during the knee bar that he got his face smashed in. Brito apparently has some like personal beef reasons with Dan Ige. I don't really understand. He's not getting that fight. Ige shouldn't have to fight down again. For Brito, I've got him against like the winner of Josh Kulbau, Lerone Murphy. I don't care about Weston Wilson. He's just not very good. He is Wonder Boy Thompson without everything that makes Wonder Boy work. Except height. He does have height. 6'1" at 145. That's a little ridiculous. No, he's bad. Should not. And I don't even mean in the Abus Magomedov type of way. I mean like, why is this guy here? Bad. Yana Santos Hossa was not very good. I scored it for Santos, but I have no problem with Hossa getting the split. It basically came down to how you saw the second round. Hossa had the better shots. I'm fine with it. And she built on some stuff. I still don't really like what I'm seeing from Hossa. Like, she came in as this, like, you know, pretty aggressive volume, really interesting prospect, and it's seemingly died. And I don't know. It wasn't a fight that filled me with any need to like explain any further, honestly. Hossa I've got against the loser of Ketlin Vieira Panikianzad, probably because the winner is more or less in like that kind of like rarefied like 4 or 6 fighters that are fight for the belt, the vacant belt. And for Yana Kunitskaya, Julia Avila is supposed to be coming back at some point in the future from her own pregnancy. I think she was pregnant anyways. Let that be the fight. And then, like I said, we had the fake fraud check. Guram Kutateladze versus Elvis Brenner. Now this one wasn't really discussed on like social media or anything. This was like specifically there was a guy in my Discord who was like the hottest of takes. And he was like, this is a fraud check. And it's like, how? Guram Kutateladze was coming off a 1-year layoff due to injury and taking this fight on short notice. He won the first 2 rounds on my card. He was landing much better strikes, hurting Brenner, and busting Brenner up badly. Brenner was a crimson mask of a human being. And then Brenner in the 3rd round catches him with a short hook, puts him down, hits him like right behind the ear, which sucks, and pounds him out. This was almost like directly the Matt Serra GSP thing I talked about earlier. Like, fighters are going to get caught, and that's what this was. My impressions and my thoughts on Kutateladze didn't really change at all. I mean, maybe I downgrade his durability like a little bit because I don't think a Brenner is like a big knockout artist or anything. But that is kind of about it. Like outside of like a moderate downgrade of like durability, he went out there. He fought like he more or less normally does. He got a little tired, but I think that's again explained by short notice, year layoff due to health concerns or injuries. And he got caught. I think there's a bit of an overblown import of what this means, both in like positives for Brenner and negatives for Kutateladze. Brenner I've got against something like Joe Selecki. Joe Selecki's kind of been like feeding on the bottom of the barrel, and like I still kind of think Brenner is there, but like he is also 2-0, so sure, why not? And Kutateladze I've got against Rafa Garcia. Which is kind of ironic because Garcia probably a higher profile fight than Selecki right now. Ivana Petrovic versus Luana Carolina was a mess. Carolina had some nice like stand-ups, had some nice work with the jab. But like at the end of the day, it was really more just like that Petrovic's only real path to victory was to crash the clinch and do 50-50 clinching with Carolina, where Carolina was landing stronger, cleaner knee strikes. And just being a generally better athlete. Like, that's the problem. Petrovic is super raw, very much used to bullying people without actually being a fantastically good athlete. I said this in the prediction video. Her fight with Emelina Wozniak, I think that's how that's said, Evelina Wozniak, excuse me, did prove something that she's not just a bully. Like, she is tough. She's got that dog in her. She's got that heart. She starts slow and kind of works her way to fights. Like, so I think there's plenty to work on there, but like it's going to require some good coaching that I'm not sure she's getting in any way, shape, or form. And when she ran into someone who she just couldn't bully in the clinch, like Carolina, her game really kind of shut down. Like, she was reduced to kind of like rolling for knee bars and like toe holds and stuff. And that doesn't really, it doesn't really work at this level. Like, it's just not, it's not functional. And it really just kind of like reinforced my idea that like Petrovic should have been on Contender Series. This is not a weight class that needs just bodies. It has a reasonably large roster of fairly competent ladies. If this was a bantamweight, that's a different story, because bantamweight needs bodies, featherweight needs bodies, or shut it down. But it wasn't needed here, and as a result, you could probably guess. Honestly, I have her facing some winner off of Contender Series, or even some loser who gets signed. For Carolina, I didn't find myself like thinking any more of her, so like, why not just do Teresa Bleda? Bleda is the same type of fighter in the sense that she is basically a bully fighter who doesn't necessarily have a front-runner bully mindset. but who is bigger and more physical than Petrovic. It's like the same test, but that half level up. Alexander Romanov beat Blagoy Ivanov in it's a heavyweight fight. And I don't know what to do with either of them because, like, nothing about this fight convinced me that Romanov is back to feeling good about himself because he looked, against Volkov, he just looked incredibly depressed. And obviously he didn't self-destruct here in the same way. It looked like he was in a little bit better shape. Looked like the hair was a little bit more kempt. The beard was a little bit more kempt. Took a little bit more pride in his appearance. And he went out there and got the job done. But at the same time, I don't know. And like the problem is like Ivanov is also just not really a round-winning kind of guy. He's not really a guy who puts his own stamp on fights. He's just really, really tough and kind of a blank slate. So I don't know. I don't know what this means. Like, had he gone out there and like destroyed Ivanov and finished him, that would mean something. But winning the decision against Ivanov, I don't honestly know what that means. Really. He looked better than against Volkov. He still probably needs to face on pretty much the bottom of the division if they're going to rebuild him. And I never really know what to do with Ivanov because, like, the guy is, even for heavyweight, old enough that he's, he is a finished product. He's not going to be a title contender, whatever. But he's a super difficult out at the same time, but like a super difficult out in a way that most heavyweights aren't. So I don't know. It's always been kind of confusing what to do with him. And as a result, I don't have anything. I don't have anything. Obviously, they'll both fight again in the UFC, and they should. But I don't have any particular desires or wants on the matter. That is all for the card, and I think we do finally have like a good UFC card. Is the pay-per-view next week? Yeah, it is. UFC 290. I'll leave you on a high note. UFC 290 looks like awesome fun. Now there is one fight on the main card which probably just isn't main card worthy. Like, I get it. Bo Nickel's going to be on the main card. He's going to fight Tresean Gore. I don't know. I would use that as a feature prelim myself. You bring in like the wrestling crowd for free, or well, not free, but like, for the ESPN like thing, and get them to buy the pay-per-view that way. That to me makes more sense than like putting them on the pay-per-view. But I don't know. But like, you've got Dricus du Plessis, Whitaker. We got the two title fights. We got Dan Hooker versus Jalen Turner. That's a really good fight. I'm looking forward to Robbie Lawler, Nico Price. I'm looking forward to Sean Brady versus Jack Della Maddalena. I'm looking forward to Hasman Howergui versus DZ Gomes. I think that's a good fight. I think Vitor Petrino and Marcin Prachnio has some fun upside. Jimmy Crute, Alonzo Menifield. It was fun the first time. I don't really like for Jimmy Crute's brain health that he's having the fight again, but it's there. It's fun. Yeah, I mean, there is some like very much filler here. Jesus Aguilar and Shannon Ross can go burn in a fire, but for the most part, it's fun. There's going to be some good stuff, and I think it's really cool. It's a little bit of a letdown. We're not getting Davey Figgs versus Manuel Cap on the card, but like at the same time, I also don't want to see Davey Figgs trying to make flyweight anymore. So there you go. I will see you guys for the predictions for that. Check out the links down below to the social medias, the other media's channels, and so on. And I thank you for listening and your time. Thank you for listening and for donating your time. There you go. That's what I wanted to say.